Hey friends, welcome back to Read Talks. I'm Rita, and on this YouTube channel, I just share some of the thoughts, ideas that I've been thinking about, some of the things that have been going on in my life. And in today's video, I listened to a very cool episode, basically on the Diary of a CEO podcast, and it was with Scott Galloway. So basically, the name of the episode is The Investing Expert, and basically some quotes from whatever Scott Galloway said from the episode. So, we're raising the most unhappy generation in history, the unseen link between marriage and wealth, etc. And I actually think some of the work that this guy has done is actually very interesting. And I think he has come before on the Diary of a CEO podcast. But I mean, it's always good to have people come and remind you of the things. And basically, the main intention of this episode is just for Scott to talk about a bit his book, which came out this year, called The Algebra of Wealth. And actually, it's a book that I kind of really want to read, especially that lately I've been listening to a lot of Naval Ravikant, and he kind of talks about wealth being the first thing that you should seek, because when you build wealth, you kind of start to free yourself up to be free. And it's something that I absolutely want. I really want freedom in my life, to be able to wake up at the time that I want, work on the things that I want, do the things that my curiosity draws me to, and all of that stuff. And basically, I think Scott Galloway kind of talks about the same thing, about the importance of wealth and the kind of things that it affords you, and not in the sense if you want to be rich, like social media rich, to show off and all of that stuff. That's not what I'm interested in, or any of these guys are interested in. It's more about freedom and this kind of peace of mind. So anyway, Naval talks about the three pillars of life. So wealth, health, and happiness. So get wealthy, get healthy, and get happy. And those are basically the three things that anyone should be looking for in his life, in their life. And I just thought it was very cool, and it's always good to have reminders of these kind of ideas. And since lately I've resolved myself that I'm not gonna be reading any tactics books, any books that say here's how, do a very narrow thing that only applies, that's kind of a tactic and does not have any foundational principles. And basically, I think this book that Scott Galloway is talking about, the algebra of wealth, does not talk about specifics, but more about principles. And that's kind of the book that I was looking for. And I was just looking for a book to read on kind of money and stuff, because I have not been reading that much about that topic. I usually try to have at least one book a year where I just read a bit about money, because I forget about the principles and start to get a bit a bit more, I don't know, easygoing with my spending. And it's always good to have reminders of why it's good to save and invest and yeah, basically work towards that kind of financial freedom that allows you to be free in your day-to-day life, to do whatever you feel like doing, whatever you feel like pursuing. And So basically, in this podcast episode, he talked about a few timeless principles. I mean, timeless. A few rules, like obviously invest in anyway, cheap index funds. So index funds that don't take any commission because they just average out some specific parts of the market. And basically, he then talks about the most important skill that we should teach our kids. And I'll talk about that in a second. But what I want to talk about right now is something that he mentioned that I thought actually was an excellent way to view life, or like basically leadership, is that basically greatness is in the agency of others. And if we dissect this a bit further, it's about empowering others to be able to act with agency and to be able to make decisions with good judgment. So it's about not only having good judgment yourself, but putting systems in place that allow for others to exercise good judgment. And basically, it's good judgment at scale that does not require you, as maybe the lead entrepreneur or the main, like the person who started whatever business or whatever idea. Basically, not concentrating good judgment to you, but basically scaling good judgment all the way down in your organization. And I think he put it like this way, like the way that he put it. Greatness is in the agency of others. When you empower others to be able to make good decisions and to have, like, to build that good judgment to be able to make those good decisions, that's where great results come from. So that really resonated with me, and it kind of aligns with the kind of perspectives I have on teaching others. Is that basically whatever I try to learn myself, I try to teach it in a way that whoever is on the other side can reach my level of mastery in the fastest time possible, and then build on that level of mastery, and basically make it so that they make it basically be really intense with the learning for a short period of time until they get everything, and basically get them to a point that they don't need me anymore. And so basically that's kind of a scalable way, like just scale my knowledge and get it into their heads, so that I don't need to be in the room, and I know that they will be able to make good decisions, good judgment, with good judgment, because I have taught them, like, in a way that allows them to be autonomous and basically learn to not need me in the room. Obviously, I'm not that like senior yet. I'm still very early in my career, but that's what I at least try to do with whoever, basically any area of expertise that I have and that I'm trying to pass on to others. And basically, like, I go about it from the principle of, this is how I would like to be taught when someone is teaching me something. This is how I would wish they taught me this. And so basically I just make it so that whenever I transmit knowledge, I do it in that way that makes it really easy for them to get to the heart of the topic and basically become autonomous as fast as possible and not dependent on me. And so, yeah, hopefully by doing that enough times, like, I believe in leading by example. So by doing that enough times, I can get people to also teach me whatever they know in a way that I don't need to keep going back to them, and that like somehow gets that knowledge in my head, and that's kind of is like from and it's like a positive sum game assumption, because me teaching other people and them teaching me will ultimately allow us to make the pie bigger and improve together, rather than being in a competitive state where I'm trying to be better than these guys and keep my edge of like what I know. So yeah, that's I just thought it was really well put, and yeah, it kind of resonated with me. So moving on to actually the skill that he thought was the most important skill that any kid needs to learn to set themselves up for success. And it's not, I don't know, it's not any of the skills that would naturally like you would think, oh, this is what we should be teaching in schools. But basically, the skill is the skill of storytelling. And basically, what he's talking about is basically practicing the skill of like figuring out what's the optimal medium for you specifically, and basically just rolling with that medium, picking that medium as your main medium, and practicing that skill kind of relentlessly every day to become a top 1% storyteller on that specific medium. And basically he gives an example that like if you read Jeff Bezos's letter to shareholders, 1997 letter to shareholders, he's like, every time I read this letter, I'm like, just take my money. Like, I want to invest in Amazon, right? That just like kind of shows like how storytelling, like no matter how much expertise you have in a field, if you're not able to convince other people of the value of what you're proposing, it's you might as well not have that expertise, because you won't be able, like, because we live in an interconnected world, and we need other people's support to make something happen. And so the ability to communicate that in a way that's compelling, but also like on top of storytelling, needs to be data driven, at least for me. To be able to do that ethically, I need to do it in a data-driven way. I know some people don't, because their goal is just to make money. But that's the way I see it. Like the intersection between storytelling, data, and like basically truth, and finding the best way to express that, like finding the best way to express that truth in a way that resonates. That's the skill of storytelling that I guess is the skill of the future. And so actually this, I think, to tie back to the yesterday's video, I think this is something that this is one of the most important skills to be able to survive in the age of AI, like the ability to convince other people, and yeah, like to really explain why some specific thing is important. So yeah, the most important skill that Scott Galloway thinks that any kid needs to learn is storytelling. And the way that he proposes to do this is to practice it every day, so that you become the top 1% storyteller on whichever medium like you enjoy the most, and you're naturally more inclined towards. And actually this is I mean, I did not do it on purpose, right? But I guess it just came from a hunch, right? That's like kind of gives me even more justification of keeping doing these Rita Talks videos, because this allows me to practice my verbal storytelling skills. So yeah, just really cool to see that this is an important, like, if not the most important skill, to be able to convey why people should listen to you, why people should buy your product, why, like, basically just making information digestible in a way that people can actually understand why something is important. I don't know if that's making any sense, but I hope it is. But I hope you get the point, right? So that was very cool. And so just to close this off, one last thing that he said is that the key to building wealth when you're young is to become an owner and not an earner, and just focus on building equity and ownership. So that starts with S&P, like, or index funds, and also owning businesses or property or some sort of equity, and that's how you become wealthy over the long term. So my camera is actually, the battery is dying. So I'm just gonna stop this right here. Thanks a lot for tuning in. You can click here to watch my previous video on this channel, it's the one right before this one, or you can click here to watch my latest video on the channel overall. Thanks again for tuning in. I hope you have a fantastic rest of day, night, whichever time of day it is where you are right now. Bye for now, and I will hopefully see you in the next one. Bye bye!